You hear the sound before you see anything else. The dull thump at the door. You check your phone. Delivered. Maybe it's an Amazon package, maybe UPS, maybe FedEx, a small box. Unexpected, but not alarming. Now imagine this instead. You open the door in the summer of 1898, and sitting there is a neatly wrapped parcel. Inside it, a white glazed candy box, oblong in shape, tied with narrow pink satin ribbons, the word bonbons stamped in gold across the lid. A gift. No warning, no threat, no reason to be afraid. Hours later, people are vomiting. By morning, 2 women are dead. You may have heard this story before. You may think you know how it ends. But what you may not have heard is how the newspapers told it while it was happening. How investigators traced a package step by step across the country. How handwriting candy wrappers, postage stamps, and a 25-cent handkerchief became witnesses. And how a crime from 1898 feels disturbingly modern. This is not a legend. This is not folklore. This is a historical crime reconstructed from newspaper testimony, depositions, and evidence reports. And this is the story of Cordelia Botkin. Before the crime, before the poison, before the headlines, newspapers struggled to describe the woman at the center of it all. Newspaper accounts emphasized that she did not appear dangerous. She was described as composed and articulate, outwardly respectable. A quiet, well-dressed, middle-aged woman who did not fit the public's idea of a murderer. What made the case even more unsettling to readers at the time was that she was not a woman without ties. She was married and the mother of an adult son. Contemporary reporting also described her as having formed a close romantic attachment to a man outside her marriage. A relationship, the papers said, developed gradually and became emotionally intense. The newspapers suggested the attachment lasted months rather than weeks, long enough to establish emotional dependency and jealousy, even though no exact dates were ever confirmed in print. And it was that hidden emotional life, the one newspapers could only reconstruct after the fact, that would soon matter far more than anyone realized. In August of 1898, Dover, Delaware was quiet. The Dunning household was full that summer. Elizabeth Dunning, her sister Ida Dean, their parents, children, visitors, drifting in and out. Elizabeth Dunning was the daughter of a former United States congressman, a detail newspapers would later emphasize, because it pushed this case beyond a private tragedy and into national scandal. That evening after supper, they sat outside on the veranda, the kind of moment that feels safe simply because it's familiar. And then the package was opened. Inside the candy box were chocolate bonbons, 3 kinds. One hard, similar to what a confectioner would make. Another soft, with every appearance of being homemade. There was also a plain white handkerchief, still bearing its price mark, 25 cents. And a note written in lead pencil on ruled white paper. The words read, "With love to yourself and baby," signed simply, Mrs. C. The handwriting on the note was described later as jerky, different from the address, very much like a woman's hand. No one suspected danger. The candy was shared. Children ate it. Visitors ate it. But two women ate more than the others: Elizabeth Dunning and her sister, Ida Dean. By nightfall, those who had eaten the candy became violently ill, retching, sweating, collapsing. Doctors were called. By the next day, Ida Dean was dead. Elizabeth Dunning followed shortly after. Doctors would later testify that they did not die of natural illness. One physician stated, "From the history of the case as given by Dr. Bishop and the symptoms and conditions which I found, I know she came to her death by poison. Arsenic was found in their stomachs and in the remaining candy. Those who had eaten the same supper, but not the candy, were unharmed. The gift had not been a gift at all. It was a weapon." Attention turned immediately to where the package came from. The wrapper told a story. It bore 4 or 5 5-cent stamps and 1 2-cent stamp. Only one carried a legible cancellation mark. Postal inspectors testified that the mark was made at Station D, San Francisco, and now the investigation slowed down. Not because it lacked direction, but because every step had to be proven. Postal men traced the box. Minute by minute, station by station, from San Francisco on August 4th to its delivery in Dover on August 9th. James W. Irwin, a United States Post Office inspector, testified that the arrival times at each principal point along the route were recorded precisely. Mailing clerk John Dunnigan testified that he remembered handling the package, not because it seemed dangerous, but because the name Dunning caught his attention. Oscar Forster, a letter carrier, testified that he knew Mrs. Botkin personally, having handled her mail while she lived at the Victoria Hotel. He identified change of address orders that he said she submitted herself. The mail was speaking. Then came the objects inside the box. The handkerchief. A clerk from the City of Paris department store testified that the handkerchief matched stock sold there. Same texture, same pattern, same price marking. 25 cents? She stated, "In November and December 1897, I personally marked handkerchief prices. All handkerchiefs sold since then bore those same markings." Another witness later recalled standing with Mrs. Botkin in that very store. She remembered her remark. "They are handsome, are they not?" The handkerchief had not been purchased that day, but it had been noticed. Then came the handwriting. This is where the case tightened. A handwriting expert, Theodore Kitka, examined the address on the candy wrapper, the note inside the box, change of address stubs, letters addressed to Mrs. Dunning, letters addressed to Mrs. Price, Mrs. Botkin's own signed statement to police. He testified, "In my opinion and judgment, all the writings contained in these several originals are in the handwriting of Mrs. Cordelia Botkin." A police stenographer confirmed that the signature on Botkin's statement was written in his presence. John P. Dunning, Elizabeth's husband, testified that he had received over 300 letters from Mrs. Botkin and had personally seen her write. He recognized the handwriting. By now, newspapers were no longer asking what happened. They were asking why. John P. Dunning had married Elizabeth Pennington in 1891. She was the daughter of a former congressman. They moved west. They had a child. They settled in San Francisco. But at some point, Elizabeth returned east to Dover with their baby. Dunning stayed behind. And in San Francisco, he became connected to another woman, Cordelia Botkin. The papers used careful language, but they used it repeatedly. Intimacy, infatuation, affinity. One article stated plainly that Botkin regarded Dunning as her particular affinity. They lived in the same building. They corresponded constantly, and then Dunning left. He departed suddenly as a war correspondent. He traveled through Puerto Rico, Jamaica, Cuba, writing letters signed simply J. Letters that were later intercepted by police. Letters that spoke of heat, danger, excitement, war fever, and love. When investigators asked Mrs. Botkin about the package, she denied everything over and over again. "Did you mail the package?" "I did not." "Do you know who mailed it?" "Nothing whatever." "Have you ever seen the package?" "Never." "Did you authorize anyone to send it?" "I did not." The chief pressed her. "I am to understand that you know nothing whatever, positively nothing of this package or of its being mailed?" She answered, "Nothing whatever." Later, when asked if she had participated in any way in administering poison, "I never did." And finally, "I have said all I possibly can on the subject. I know no more." The trial was slow. Jurors were difficult to seat. Many said they would not vote to hang a woman. Others admitted they had already formed opinions. Judge Cook received anonymous letters and refused to be influenced by them. Delaware waited. California tried the case. The evidence was circumstantial, but complete. Candy, poison, mail, handwriting, motive. In December of 1898, the verdict came back. Guilty of murder in the first degree. The jury spared her life. Life imprisonment. But even that was not the end. Years later, in a reminder of how fragile justice could be at the turn of the century, a separate legal ruling altered the way judges were permitted to instruct juries on circumstantial evidence. Because of that change, Cordelia Botkin was granted a new trial. According to contemporary reporting, she expressed confidence. She was quoted as saying, "When the new trial is granted me by that tribunal, it won't be long before I walk out of the courtroom a free woman." She did not. She was tried again, convicted again, sentenced again. Her appeals failed. Her husband divorced her. Her health declined. And in 1910, she died in custody. This was not just a murder. It was one of the first American cases to expose a terrifying idea. that death could arrive by mail, wrapped as kindness, signed with love, and that idea has never left us. Even after the legal case had ended, the scrutiny did not. The story cast one final shadow, not in the courtroom, but behind the jail walls. While she waited on appeals, newspapers remarked on her demeanor in custody. Reports noted that Mrs. Botkin appeared composed and unusually comfortable, well-dressed, reading newspapers, speaking freely with attendants, and receiving flowers. These details, ordinary on their own, fueled public speculation that she was not being treated like an ordinary prisoner. Some papers went further, suggesting that she had grown too familiar with at least one guard, a rumor never formally charged, never proven, and never resolved. But rumor matters, even when it is untrue, because it reveals something essential. This case was not only argued in court, it was judged daily in the public imagination, shaped by headlines, whispers, and expectation. In a companion video, we return to the newspapers themselves, reading the published letters word for word and examining what they reveal about the relationship, the timing, and the emotions unfolding long before any verdict was reached. So the next time you hear that thump at the door and see the word delivered, remember this story. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't a stranger breaking in, it's a gift you never expected and trusted without question. If you've encountered different newspaper accounts or another version of this case, share them. History isn't finished speaking, and neither is this story.